So welcome to my review on the G.I.M RGB fan. So at first look, you see these and you think it's another clone. There's plenty of these out in the world that look identical, but what I found out is they're actually not all alike. There are quite a few differences, and when I first got this fan, I was a little bit concerned because I saw, another one that I used before, and this is the AlphaCool iCUE, and thought it'd be a great time to kind of do a comparison because these are both kind of introductory market RGB fans. This one's for 28 bucks. I think this is probably close to for 30. And, these are definitely introductory fans compared to, the fans I normally use, which are Corsair, which tend to be about $30 per fan. So there's a bit of a difference between those and the Corsairs, but I thought it'd be kind of good to start off with a good comparison between these because, there are a few other companies that do make this. I think Asian Horse is another one, but on the surface, they might all look the same, but they're actually quite different. There's some subtle differences. The first one is the controllers. You think they look the same. I mean, other than they use very similar mold for it. They use the same headers. The pinouts are actually identical, so you can actually plug both fans into the same controllers. There are some subtle differences in the PCB that's inside of them. So if you can see in this picture, there's you can tell that there's a little microphone right here, and that's used for the sound, the music. And it's just kind of a simple, it reacts to kind of, kind of a bass thump. So there's no equalizer mode. It just reacts, has 3 different lighting effects that you can set through this little controller right here. And, it's not as amazing as an equalizer mode, but, it's a little feature that the AlphaCool doesn't have. The second thing that kind of annoyed me about the AlphaCool is this has your older style, what people call Molex, while this uses a SATA power. So, that was a nice little difference. And the next thing is that you see is that this comes with a RGB connector that you can connect and sync directly to your computer. So the AlphaCool, which is surprising, doesn't come with that. So you can actually plug this not only into your standard addressable motherboard header, like this little kind of thing that I have right here. So you just plug it into your header on your motherboard, but also it has the legacy VDG 4 GB. So you plug in like that. So most people won't need this anymore because they quit. Gigabyte switched from the VDG type header with square pins to this more commonly used VD space ground on their motherboard. And I think it was Z390, that's when they switched to it. But the nice thing, because it's included in this set, it actually is also compatible with Corsair's headers. So you just want to make sure that you plug it in properly if you're going to use Corsair to control it. And there goes my dog. It's probably a deer outside or something. So this is compatible with the Corsair style header. You just want to make sure to have the voltage lined up with the little slat right here. You can plug this into the Corsair header like this. And this is kind of a side effect, which is nice if you want to control these with Corsair iCUE, which in my opinion is the best RGB software out there. It gives you a lot of options. So it's nice that they did that. A couple other differences. This comes with the more modern and smaller 3535 RGB LED, while it comes with a 5050 style LED. So these are bigger and brighter, but they leave hot spots. But with the smaller 3535, they actually put a lot on them, so you kind of get a smoother effect. And while you can see, in this example here, you can see more of a hot spots wherever the LEDs are, while they use a lot more of these 35. And 3535 refers to 3.5 millimeter by 3.5 millimeter, and 5050 is 5 millimeter by 5 millimeter. So the smaller they are, you can put a lot more on them. This has 16 in the center and 16 on the outside, and they're actually synchronized together. But I'll get more to that in a second. The thing that really bothered me about the AlphaCool, and this is kind of shame on AlphaCool, because I've never heard of GIM, which stands for Global IMAL, and I've known AlphaCool or OCool. They make a lot of water cooling, and they seem to have just quickly outsourced some cheap RGB fan and just slapped their name on it. And you can find a clone of this on AliExpress and it actually includes the same completely wrong static pressure ratings. I mean, 2.32 millimeters H2O is just completely unrealistic for a 1300 RPM fan. I mean, you're talking about probably more like a 2000 a 1800 RPM fan would probably have that reading. So Noctua nor Corsair can get anywhere close to these static pressure ratings at this RPM. That's just unrealistic, and it's sad that they have that on the box. I did mention it to a source of mine, mentioned that to AlphaCool. I don't know at the time if they went back and fixed it, but they could have. So what you can do with this is you basically pull the reset switch out of your motherboard and plug it into here and use your reset switch on your motherboard, not for resetting your PC, but for changing different modes. So you can use it as that way. And also you do have this controller, which has various different modes that, you can see in this little B-roll that I made. And, it's kind of cool, but, in general, when it comes to these manual controllers, I'm not a fan of them. I'm more of a software guy. I like everything controlled by software. I like effects, and it's nice that you can actually have a cheap, entry-level fan that does have the features of being able to plug it into your motherboard or another third-party controller like Corsair's and control these fans. Well, one of the big downsides for somebody like me who likes to have a lot of control of your fans is there's no method of controlling these fans via PWM or voltage control from your computer directly. If there is one recommendation that I'd have to this company, is they would actually have another port to connect your fan header on your motherboard, or your Commander Pro if you have a Corsair controller, to control the PWM signal on the little MOSFET that they have on this board. It shouldn't be that difficult to add that functionality, but I think it would get more interest in the high end. So I actually mapped up the headers here. So you have 12 volts supplying power to the fan directly. You have a MOSFET for controlling the speed or cutting it off. To me, it seemed like the fan speed was working, but then it seemed to just go into kind of off-on mode. Like, it was hard to tell. Next one is ground. Then you have data in for the for your RGB, the 5 volt for the RGB, and the ground's also used for RGB. And the last pin is either not connected or for data out for the RGB. So in theory, you can actually wire these RGB fans in series to actually have effect go from here, this fan to that fan to that fan, to the data in on the same pin. So they're actually not wired in series or wired in parallel. The fans have the ability to allow you to wire it in series, so you can actually have that effect go throughout everything. And that's actually a feature that not a lot of the fans have. So that is one kind of hidden advantage. If you wanted to basically recrimp the wire on one of these fans to really allow you to plug it into a Corsair RGB hub, you can kind of get that nice effect going out through, but you're still limited to 2 pins for power and the MOSFET for these. But the neat thing about this fan is I actually took it apart, and as you can see on this picture, I found an empty solder point, and so I decided to wire it up and take a look at it. And if you can see right here, actually this blue wire coming out, and I tested it. This is actually for the tachometer, so you can actually turn this, if you're handy with a solder, you can actually turn it into a 3-pin fan and plug it up to a motherboard if you want to recrimp it. I mean, it's not that difficult to recrimp it, but soldering might not be everybody's suit, but it wasn't that difficult for me. So you can actually do a lot of modding. I actually think I might do a video on how to mod these to make them really cool fans. I mean, they do have a lot of potential. I mean, you're talking about 32 LEDs for $30 for 3 fans. I think they even have a 5-pack for like $40 to $50. So it's kind of neat what you can do on that. And when I said I found a tach, I actually plugged it in to the tachometer, and I did verify that about 20% duty cycle. That means like you're sending power like 20% of the time in little square waves. Duty cycle is basically where you're sending power in waves of 20%, so 20% on, 80% off, 20% on, and it's at 20%. It was not all that accurate, but it was getting about 642 RPMs according to the tachometer. At 30%, it was at about 746 RPM. 40% at duty cycle is at 821. 60% was at 988 RPM. 80% duty cycle was 1100, and 100% duty cycle gave me about 1228, which is within the specs of this fan. It says 1300 RPM on the side, wherever the side is. It claims 1300, and I think plus minus 100, or plus minus 10%. So that's well within the range of the fan. So that is true. So I can validate that, through hijacking that empty pad, that it does it's within specs, and you can actually control it, which is neat. Again, I want to do a little modding video. They claim to have hydro bearing. I'm not an expert when it comes to like the actual bearings and fans. I don't have the expertise or knowledge to actually validate that. Hydro bearing is one of the best bearings you can get. A magnetic levitation bearing is going to be the top end. You see those ML fans by Corsair. Cooler Master also has some ML fans, but most of the decent fans that you're going to have out there are going to have a hydro bearing. Servers a lot of times will have rifle bearing, which tend to be louder, but are not as used in like the PC consumer space. Then you have the sleeve bearing, which are horrible, and I don't think many companies use those anymore. Hopefully these aren't. Well, with that said, I have no like means to really test these long term. I'm just playing with them, turning them on, testing the performance, checking out the LEDs, looking at the PCB a little bit. I think they look pretty good for a budget audience. Again, when it comes to a computer, I think you should put your budget towards the video card as much as you can, and the CPU. You try to impact those areas that will impact performance. I mean, if you're going full water cooling, you're more enthusiast, then the Corsair RGB fans kind of are going to be more of your suit. But for a buyer who is on a budget but wants to have a nice, neat looking system, I mean, these are a no-brainer. I mean, it's kind of hard to suggest spending 10% of your budget on just some fans. $100 can actually put you into the next tier video card, which is kind of what I would suggest for most people. So again, these are budget fans. They're kind of meant for the entry-level person. Tell me what you guys thought about this review. This is actually my first time reviewing a product that was sent to me for the purpose of review. Mostly they're products I do purchase myself or are provided to me for the purpose of beta testing. So this is kind of the first time a manufacturer has reached out to me for the purpose of a review, and I appreciate them sending it to me. So thank you for taking the time to tune in and watch my video on this review. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments, and check us out on Discord. Feel free to subscribe. Thank you very much.